If you or your child are returning to college after a long break, or maybe juggling work and school, or just taking a less traditional path to a college degree, then this video is for you. You may be wondering how the paying for college process varies versus a traditional high school senior entering college. The good news is that there are resources out there. There is money out there, scholarships, and they are specifically designed for non-traditional students. So whether going back to college after being in the workforce, pursuing a degree later in life, or taking classes part-time while handling family responsibilities, there's help available. So today I wanted to share some of the top scholarships for non-traditional students, along with some tips on how to maximize this money. Now make sure you hit subscribe, because every week we have a new strategy for you and your family to work towards a debt-free degree. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, where we teach families overwhelmed with the cost of college how to secure scholarships so that their student can avoid student loan debt. Now our main weapon against that is scholarships. In fact, we've helped families secure well over $15 million to date. Now, I just want to note that this is for U.S. citizens or permanent residents. We're not familiar with this process for international students. Let's dive in. So first, I want to define what a non-traditional student is. So when we're talking about non-traditional students, this might include students that are over the age of 24. Maybe they are returning to college after a significant break. Maybe they were working for several years or raising a family. It could be someone attending part-time while they're working or managing other responsibilities. Maybe it's someone pursuing a career change or a technical or vocational degree. But overall, if the path or the student looks different from a typical senior in high school or a student that went straight from high school into college, or even a gap year in there is still pretty normal. If it's anything beyond that, then we could call that non-traditional. Now, why scholarships? Why do these matter? Well, of course, we all love free money. But that said, going back to school as a non-traditional student, it's a big decision, and it often comes with challenges that younger students and families with younger students may not face. Balancing school with a full-time job, with childcare, or trying to make ends meet with real life, in addition to doing this, can be overwhelming. So thankfully, many organizations recognize these challenges and want to support students that are working hard to reach their goals despite the obstacles that they're facing. So the goal here is that these will help lighten the load and make it easier for students to pursue that degree. Now, I do want to say we don't just want to focus on scholarships that specifically say that they are for non-traditional students. I do have a free webinar you can attend, the scholarshipsystem.com/free webinars, where you can register. You can find the link below in the description. You can also click this video, open it up in a new tab, and check that out after this. But it will cover where you can find legitimate scholarships with lots of different ideas of key terms. So if it doesn't specifically have an age limit, or if it doesn't specifically say you must be a senior in high school, those could be open to you or to your student if you're watching this for them. So check out that free webinar in addition to the tips I'm about to share. Now, I want to give you a very specific list of scholarships. So let's go ahead and dive into those, and then I have some tips before we wrap up. So the first scholarship for non-traditional students is the Alpha Sigma Lambda Scholarship. This scholarship is aimed at adult learners who have a dedication to their studies but are balancing it with responsibilities of work and a family. They have multiple awards, so the dollars may vary, but eligibility typically requires a school with an active Alpha Sigma Lambda chapter and having completed a minimum certain number of credit hours. The second is Imagine America Scholarship Program. This is for adult learners enrolling in participating colleges. The third is the Return to College Scholarship Program. This one is specifically for those returning after a gap of time. It awards $1,000 to students aged 17 or older. So it's not like there's necessarily a minimum age or a maximum age, but more about that gap. And this can be something that's applied to for students that are heading to college or already there. So this is a perfect example of one thing that we teach through the scholarship system, where we always want to keep applying until we get that degree, because there is tons of money available those later years as well. The fourth one is the Jeanette Rankin National Scholarship Grant. I hope I didn't butcher that name. This one is fantastic for lower income women aged 35 or older, and it's specific to technical or vocational education and associate's degree or a first bachelor's degree. So that's one thing that you might see with a lot of these is it has to be the first bachelor's degree, not going back to school to do another bachelor's degree. The award amounts vary based on financial need and eligibility as well here. A fifth one is called Adult Students in Scholastic Transition. So ASSIST, ASIST scholarship. This is offered by Executive Women International, EWI, and it supports adult students who are facing economic, social, or physical challenges. And it's geared towards people looking to improve their life through education. Now, we actually did create a blog post to go along with this where we cover scholarships for non-traditional students to apply to. So we will link to that in the description below as well, along with the other free resources that I've mentioned. But overall, these scholarships are just some examples of money that's out there to support people that are trying to balance life and school, maybe if it's going back after a gap of time or going back at an older age, or just whatever it is that looks different than the typical path, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's amazing to want to better ourselves and get that education. And so I hope these resources are helpful. So now I wanted to share a few tips quickly. So the first one, whether it is you applying for these or someone that you love, you want to make sure that on the application, we are sharing a story. Storytelling is memorable, it's powerful, it's relatable. A judge will always remember a story more than just stating the prompt, for example. Scholarship committees love to see resilience and determination. Those might be some topics we can pursue, but I do have a YouTube video, you can click it here, on how to pick the best scholarship essay topic. We'll again also link to that in the description below. Second is to stay organized. So keeping track of deadlines, eligibility requirements, any documents, creating maybe a spreadsheet. You also have access to our free app. If you go to the scholarshipsystem.com/app app, we have it on Google and on iOS. But that will help stay organized and give you alerts. We want to make sure that we don't miss deadlines, because that is one of the biggest reasons people don't get money, is not applying. We also want to seek strong recommendation letters. And this is where a non-traditional student may actually have an advantage. If they've been working for a while, maybe a boss can write a great letter. Maybe there's some organizations that they've volunteered at. So we want to make sure that we are thinking about that, since we're not in the traditional path of getting it from, say, a high school counselor. Next is to make sure that we are customizing each application. Do not fall prey to just copy and pasting the same thing over and over. I know that you are busy, or I'm sure the person you're trying to help with this is busy, but we need to make sure that we're at least tweaking each essay for each application, and making sure that even if we're using the same story, life story in our essays, we are still tweaking it to fit the essay prompt. It is very obvious. So through the scholarship system, we've given out over tens of thousands of dollars in scholarships and read thousands of essays. And we can tell when someone has a really solid essay that they just pasted into the essay requirement, and it didn't actually answer the question. It was just probably their admissions essay that was really fine-tuned and amazing. But if they had just tweaked it the slightest bit, it would have worked. So we always want to modify. And then the last tip is to apply to as many scholarships as possible. We do not just want to go after ones that specifically are for non-traditional students. That is just one of the terms that we can focus on. But all of the other ideas that we share in that free webinar that I mentioned, again, at the scholarshipsystem.com/free webinar, or if a course member in step 3, we talk about our Savvy Scholarship Locator, where we give over 36 ideas of topics that we can possibly find scholarships for. But we want to cast our net broad, wide, and try to find money in all the different possibilities. So comment below, what is your situation? Why are you watching this? Is it because you want to go back to school? Are you a non-traditional student? What makes you non-traditional? And are you watching this for someone that you love that is not traditional? If so, what's their situation? We'd love to see the different stories of people that are going back to school. So that said, there is money out there. It just might take a little bit of extra work and a little bit harder of digging to find, but there is money out there for non-traditional students, and that's the good news. Now, we do have tons of strategies that can be used in addition to this, even for non-traditional. So again, make sure you hit subscribe. Every week we have a new strategy for you. And don't forget that free webinar where you can learn more ideas of scholarship terms that you can use. All right, I'll see you in the next video.